In the absence of John, I would like to call the Public Safety Committee meeting for May 20th, 2025 to order. And we'll start with a roll call.
John will not be here. Seth?
Here.
Crystal? Here. Todd will not be here. And Steve?
Here.
We then would have time for our first period for public comment. As no one is present.
Anybody online would like to make a public comment at this time? I think you're good, Seth.
Moving on, we would then review and look for the approval of our April 22, 2025 minutes.
This is Crystal. I would move approval of the minutes from April 22nd, 2025, with no additions or corrections.
Steve, I'll second.
With a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Do I need to do the opposed? All opposed? Minutes pass. On to number 4, we would be looking at the operator license approvals.
Nate, do you want to scroll up
Oh, I'm
with
sorry.
that information?
I
sent this out in the packet, but I did have some more that came in later after the packet went out. I have several for Quick Trip North that came in, so I can give you the names of those. It's Ina Peterson, Nathaniel Roberts, Bonnie Mashik, Devin Orth, Heidi Iverson, Nathan Rader, Lori Lucas, Daniel Schlosser, Brittany Lee, Phyllis Kirking, Cheryl Sandwick, Cheryl Arneson, Julian Resto, Corey Good, Crystal Showers, and Penny Hayes. Roxanne Torgerson is one that's on the list, but I also need to get a copy of her license before that one can be approved. So we have those to add to the list that was sent out, plus the VFW brought their stuff in, which is Keith Yan is the agent. Then we have Jerry Gilman, Claudia Carew, Kira Lear, Cricket Lochner, Melissa Olson, and Julie Neal. So those, and then I also had a renewal from Tangled Hickory from McKendra Hansen that she actually just got one back in April. So that one's fairly new. So some of these have gone through the background check. Some of them are still in progress, and we also received the ones for the fire department today. So those also came in, and I believe there's still some of these that have to go through that. So if you decide to approve these, it would be pending all the background checks, and we do have a couple here that need to get me copies of licenses. So those would be held pending getting that background as well.
So Lori, what you're asking is for both lists plus all the people you mentioned verbally.
Correct.
This is Steve. I guess I will make a motion that we approve the beer and liquor license renewals for 2025, 2026.
Yeah, operator licenses. Operator licenses.
Sure. Yeah, sorry. I was just reading the agenda. So the operator licenses for 2025, 2026 license year with the lists that you provided and the additional folks
And pending
pending
background check.
background checks.
This is Crystal. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. We have approved operator license renewals. Then moving on to 5, the review and approval of the beer and liquor license renewals for 25-26 license year.
So if you want to scroll forward on this, everything that went out in the packet, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to flip it, but they all were submitted, and then I also have VFWs that came in. Theirs is a Class B beer liquor combination. The only change in which I have highlighted here is the Temple Theater. The last 2 years, actually since 2021, they've only had a Class B beer and a Class C wine. This year, they're wanting to go back to the Class B beer, Class B liquor. We are at our maximum, but they fall under the exemption of being an opera house per se. So they don't fall under the actual restricted number that we have. So that's the only change. Everybody else is the same as what we've had in previous years. A few of the agents have changed from previous years, but otherwise most of them are the same. I don't know if there's any issues that you've had with any of these, Rick. Okay.
No. For my knowledge, when we upgrade to the Class B beer, Class B liquor, does that then are they still allowed for serving of wine?
Yes.
Because it's an
Yes.
upgrade.
So,
to
yep,
the
the
liquor?
wine is included in the liquor at that point.
Okay.
That was kind of like the only way they could get around not having enough of them to give out is that they would go from the Class B beer and Class C wine. But once we had a liquor license available, then they can move into that and it covers the wine as well.
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay, this is Crystal, and I would move that we approve the beer and liquor license renewals for 2025-26 license year, including the list as well as the VFW.
Steve, I'll second.
I did not have my mic on. We have motion and second. Any discussion on any of that? Any concern?
I will just let,
Yeah.
You have something?
I have a question. Where's 1212 LLC?
that is maybe Lately's.
Owned by 1212 LLC. Okay.
Yeah, that's the official name.
Good question.
And the only ones that I'm missing right now is Pizza Hut. I did deliver that one in person again. I had mailed it out to them. However, she told me that their mailboxes got hit and all they got was the envelope once she realizes what the envelope was for after I brought her the stuff today. So that one was still coming. I did not send anything out to the family restaurant yet because they're closed. And then Wonder State is also requested to bring back and have another Class B beer, Class C wine again, but I have not seen their paperwork. So other than that, they're all in. So
Okay. Good. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion and approval for the beer and liquor license renewals. Number 6, we have a review and approval of temporary Class B license for a Fourth Stream Driftless Music Festival, July 12th of 2025 in Eckhart Park.
okay, this is the usual Class B beer license that they usually do for their Driftless Music Fest, happening Saturday, July 12th. The event is from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., but they're doing the beer from noon until 9:30. It is going to be have professional bartenders at a beer tent area. So one of the things that I wanted to bring to your guys' attention that I really hadn't thought about before until we actually I went to one of these trainings regarding this. And because this is located in a city-owned park, one of the things that I did tell this to them is that if we make their premise location the entire Eckhart Park versus like a beer tent area or that location, we cannot allow any carry-ins whatsoever in the park because that is an illegal thing. Because once you start selling in a park, you cannot have carry-ins. So I was not really aware of that until some of the special officers in our training stated that. And so we want to really make sure that we are looking at these and having a specific location that alcohol can be consumed and that they need to let their patrons know they can no longer bring in carry-ins to the park if we're selling alcohol in the park, if that's the entire premise location.
Is that just on that date then? What we
Correct.
cleared for the.
Correct.
No.
And I'm assuming when you're saying carry-ins, you're talking about alcoholic beverages.
Correct. So if people wanted to come to the Driftless and they wanted to bring in a cooler, that would not be allowed anymore.
But it could, but when I say, like, it doesn't apply to, like, if I want to bring in soda.
Correct. Just alcoholic beverages because it's being sold. And if you put the premise as the Eckhart Park versus a specific location like the shelter or a beer garden area, then it is not allowed.
And that's consistent, like when we do live in Viroqua and Court Street, they're narrowed down so that nobody can walk into Court Street with beverages. So it's
Right. And that's been more like that. But when it's an Eckhart Park and they have the entire park as the premise, it becomes a bigger issue.
Okay.
So we want to make sure when we're doing these in the future that we're cognizant of that.
Sorry. Does that mean that they're aware of this now? And
I
that's
told
what they-
them when they applied for this, that was a new thing that I
Okay.
wasn't aware of. And so they were going to make an announcement
Okay.
during their event.
Okay.
So that's not saying that somebody's going to go around and
Sure.
checking everybody's coolers, but
So
just-
the way for you guys, I guess too, it's mostly for premise location, so if they don't abide by it, or if there's problems in the future, you can limit it to the shelter, you could limit it to a beer tent, you could make them put an orange fence around it. And say, you guys have the orange fence, then anybody else that comes to the bottom half or the playground, that is okay. So you guys can make the restrictions a little bit tighter, we're just informing you this.
Just point of clarification. Is it reasonable to assume that people can bring alcohol to the park on any other day? Yeah. Okay.
this is just because they were selling it on that premise location that it becomes a bigger issue. Alcohol has always been a fun thing to, I learned something new every year, and this was one that the special agents at this told us about, and I was like, oh,
Well, this is Steve. I make a motion that we approve the temporary Class B beer license for the Fourth Stream Driftless Music Festival, July 12th, 2025 in Eckhart Park.
This is Crystal, I'll second.
Do we have any other discussions or concerns as the items were noted there? With that motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? The approval moves forward with that Class B license for Eckhart Park. On to 7, review and approval of temporary Class B license for the Viroqua Legion softball for events June through July 2025 at the Park Bowl softball concession stand.
okay, this is similar to the one for the Legion baseball. They now have one for the softball games, which is June 12th, 18th, and 26th, July 2nd, 9, 10, 16, and 21 through the 26th from 5 to 10 p.m. And it's in the softball field viewing area. So they narrowed it down as well. So again, if we were to make it the entire area, this would have the same consequences as Eckhart Park would.
This is Steve. I make a motion we approve the temporary Class B beer license for Viroqua Legion softball for events June through July 2025 at the Park Bowl softball field concession stand viewing area.
Correct.
This is Crystal, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I was curious, has the softball served out of there or had this?
This is the first time I've had
is
this
first.
come through.
Well, it's only the second year that they've got Legion softball, so it's probably kind of what it's played into, so. Any other discussions? We would be looking, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes to allow a Class B license for the Viroqua Legion softball for events listed. 8 is a discussion with possible action on ordinance, the amendment to allow the ATV, UTV use on Main Street. I know this was something we'd sent to lawyers last meeting?
At the last meeting, when you decided to do this, and I kind of strongly suggested you bring the ordinance back to you guys, so that you had something to view. This is what George had come back with, for the amendment, removing, the Main Street in there. I was a little, where he has authorized operate on State Highway 56, West Broadway. Is that looking at the, in between those two areas? Because that's the 35 mile an hour. Rick, I guess I'm a little wondering about on A, if that's correct.
It's correct. It's just wordy. I mean, could be confusing that way, but yeah, they can travel on 56 and on West Broadway. They just have to stop at County Road B where it turns to 55 miles an hour.
So other than that, I don't have any more information other than the fact that I knew we wanted it, if you did the ordinance amendment, that this would be the first look at it before it would go to council.
Just a question for Chief. Would it be wise to see if we could get the DOT to, I guess, expand the area beyond the city on the north side and the south side so that there's connecting routes? Or is that, we're just gonna leave
On
that?
56 or on 14.
Sorry, on 14.
We can try.
I guess my only concern is that once again, we've determined that on both sides of town, where it gets to double lanes, there could be an issue, right? So I just wonder like how that's gonna, is there gonna be signage that says you can go no further, or is, yeah, okay. Like, cause, if I remember right, you said they had to be on the far right side of the road. But then if they want to go to McDonald's, they can't be on the far right side if they're turning left across traffic, correct?
Well, they would still use, yeah, you're traveling when you're just going north and south, but if you're turning to McDonald's, then you're just using the traffic lanes and you'd use the twiddle then.
Sure. And yeah, to me, that's just seems downright scary. So,
Well, and this is Crystal, and I said, I think just during the last meeting too, I asked if we could put a map color coded out on the website for where parking and which way streets are going. And people are nuts out there, and it's not, they're just trying to figure it out. And so at the very minimum, I'd like to see this wait a year until we get that figured out before we add another layer of nutsiness into it.
I guess my whole thing is I can ride my bike on 14. I don't do it, right? But I legally can. But I don't do it because it's probably not safe. And that's my whole point with this. It's like you can literally go on any other street in town. Maybe just stay off of 14. That's the way I feel.
And I was supposed to, if you don't mind, I was going to try to come to the last meeting. I couldn't. I talked to Rick beforehand and he shared some of my position. The reason this came back was a constituent had called me, a few of them, and I told them they needed to call John as the chairman of public safety and talk to him about it coming back here. That's why it came back here. And I think Rick shared before, I don't care one way or another, but I think there's been a few business owners that have asked that we reconsider it because they're not able to access their property. Originally, Kroll Ready Mix had agreed to let them come through their parking lot to get to like Gassers and Culver's and O'Reilly's and those places. And I'd heard that they changed that last winter. They didn't want them coming through because with the trucks now those big trucks have to watch in their own parking lot for these things and whatever. So that's why it was back. On Highway 40.
They accessing so they would be in Kroll Ready Mix and they would go
Across
we
Main
can
Street.
cross from Main Street,
Mhm.
but how they get into Kroll Ready Mix?
Through the fairgrounds.
Oh, there's a back route through the fairgrounds.
That's what I mentioned last time. I wasn't aware that was closed down, but I do find it odd that Kroll doesn't want ATVs and UTVs to be, maybe be in danger of being run over by their trucks. Yeah, we're going to put these things on 14. To me, it seems bizarre.
Well, and I think it was just their own private property. There was I would assume an insurance agent at some point maybe got involved and said, well, you shouldn't have them driving on your property. But again, I think, and I've talked with, I've heard from Kale and different ideas about maybe if the Park and Rec ever got a UTV to water flowers, and if we can't allow them on Main Street, I think that we can't allow ours on Main Street either. So it's just food for thought, right? Like if we're gonna want to do that, we should probably consider this. If we're not going to ever want to do that, then it's fine the way it is, because you can get almost everywhere, right? Like there are a few businesses that you can access, and there are businesses that I think would appreciate the opportunity to have people access them. But, I think we have the benefit here in Broco of being the last community like us to do these things. So there is a lot of examples out there where they're allowed on 4-lane roads on state highways that are busy communities: Sparta, Toma, Reedsburg, Prairie du Chien, Black River Falls. Not to say that just because all those communities are doing it, we should, but I think a lot of the safety concerns, I think, had they been very large potential, we'd see more instances in those communities. But as far as like 14 going north or south out of town, people have that same issue with Highway 56. I drive out 56, you get to where the speed limit changes and you have to turn around and drive back into town. You can't continue on to another route. And I don't see a lot of people doing that other than farmers and people who have the exemption where they can drive it on the highway. And that exists here too. There's UTVs on the highway all the time around here, but it's that farming exemption. So that's
Appreciate the thought.
why, again, but I think this is here because there was businesses and constituents that would like it explored further. So
Appreciate the explanation. I have a feeling that our forum tonight or attendance tonight probably is not gonna see this amended or pushed forward to main council. I guess what the protocol is on holding it, or we've obviously got the ordinance created, but that it sees approval at a further date or whatever that would be.
I think if you hold a vote and whatever the vote is, if it passes, it passes and moves on. And if it fails, it does not. And that's the way they go. And I think they're hearing, I think it was Steve, or Crystal, if you wait, you're not necessarily saying you're opposed to it. You just would like to see a time, some more stuff done. And that's reasonable too, right? A motion to bring it back in X amount of time with whatever information gathered is certainly appropriate also. So I think that's.
And yours is, I think if I heard you correctly, a lot of it is because of the changes in the downtown, new traffic patterns and things of that
Yep.
sort, not introducing too many changes in 1 year, if I heard you correctly.
I can't see cars driving the right way on one-way streets yet. So
That is true.
right. So, but that is an option. So, that whatever, if there's no motion at all, then it dies for lack of that also. So.
I guess I would maybe make a motion that we postpone the review of this ordinance until October 1st, 2025. And if we have no second, the ordinance will be left as is.
What is the rule, Lori?
Well, first of all, is there a second? Okay, then the motion basically dies for lack of second. And then you can ask if there's any other motions to do anything differently. Otherwise, if you just are,
Would anybody have any interest in moving on this matter in any way? The ordinance is left to remain as is until further agenda.
and then somebody else can ask the chair to have this brought back onto a future agenda if you want to if you want to reconsider this at some other time.
If somebody requested this to go to council as an agenda item, that would be allowable, it would just move forward to council without any recommendation from public safety, correct?
That is correct, and that can go through the mayor.
Right. But the way we've run council is that any council member has the right to request an agenda item be placed on a council agenda, and that the mayor, even then, I mean, you make the request to the mayor, but the
Mhm.
mayor generally can't prevent an agenda item to come into council, right? So I just want to throw that out there for the rules for the group, that it doesn't have to pass through this committee for council to be able to act on it.
Okay. I appreciate that knowledge, and with that, I would ask that this ordinance be moved to common council for review with no recommendation from public safety. And I believe that ends that matter. So we'd be looking for an update on the fire department building project.
It's a building.
Signs look good.
Signs look good. We had some dry weather for a couple of weeks there, so that really helped getting caught up on the outside work and movement of dirt and material. They're saying probably mid-August at this point. We can tentatively plan on being finished and moving in. There is one holdup that will probably potentially change that, and that's the main transfer switch for the building. It was actually ordered back in August. Remember me talking about this? Back in August of last year, pre some of the approvals and things like that, because the electrician knew that they were difficult to acquire, let's say. And so it's been on order since, again, before approvals, and it still has not shown up yet. So fingers crossed, they're hoping the end of July, 1st of August, and it's possible that the rest of the building would be done except for that. But anyway, so just you're kind of on the timeline and the hiccup there. It's not due to anybody else's, no one's fault other than the manufacturer and lead times or whatever. So thinking about maybe setting up another date to walk through or whatever for some of you that weren't able to make it through. A lot's changed since the last walkthrough that some of you were able to participate in. So we'll kind of work through that and try and find a night that could potentially work. But aside from that, hasn't been any really big hiccups or anything. We do have another change order that we'll be bringing to you guys that's got some items on it. Nothing crazy, but just little things here and there. I can't think of anything else. I don't know.
Is the interior concrete all in?
Yep.
All complete? Yeah.
So all the concrete on the inside is done. They're working on the outside concrete. They were making pretty good leaps and bounds until today.
Yeah.
Today really messed them up, but yeah, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, so they're painting and getting a lot of paint in there. A lot of the sprinkler system's almost finished. Yeah, it's every day you can see some change now. A lot of it's inside. So, so unless anybody's got any specific questions on it, it's
Chad, just from the IT side, Vernon Communications, have they,
from what
like, some of those work orders that I know we've been waiting on, how, any thoughts on how those are coming along?
from what I understand, they were there and the line is in the building.
Right.
So unless I misunderstood or heard wrong, but sounds like it's in the building, so.
And just as a shout out, our IT department, our consultants from MCS Networks actually popped by on their own volition. They had some other work in the area and Mike just took upon himself, like, I need to get in that building, I need to see what's going on. And so just, I guess kudos to them for just keeping it as a priority, even without us asking. They're there, they're keeping an eye on it. They, they're reaching out and making sure that that question came from them. Is like, is Vernon Communications in there? Because there's a lot of other things that need to happen and for us to do this properly and have it secured. And they're a key part. So they've really been good consultants on this project from an IT standpoint. And
I'll try and find out and confirm 100% that I'm hearing right, that it's in, and then I'll let Mike know, just so that he's aware.
I had meant to mention that to you
Yep,
outside
nope,
the meeting, but I
nope.
figured you were on it, so I'd bring it up.
Perfectly fine. So, yeah, other than that, I can't think of anything.
Appreciate that
crazy or
update.
anything. Yep.
Glad to know it's moving. With number 10, we'd move on to the police and fire department updates.
Do you want me to
Chief.
continue, or do you want to? You can have it if you want. All right. Just a couple things here. We had annual maintenance done on all of our trucks, and it's required once a year. They go over the truck, not only its chassis, but the pumps, and make sure everything's good to go. All your trucks passed, so it's kind of nice to have a year. Knock on wood, can happen at any time, but everything passed, so that was nice. Went to a career day at Youth Initiative High School a week or two ago. To be honest, I was kind of nervous about going, not overly excited about going. Tried to almost convince myself that I was too busy, but I said, no, we're going. And the reason why I say that is because of the second part of it. It was probably one of the best things I've ever went and participated in. It was really fun. And there were 6 other business owners, or, some local, mainly local, I think. There might have been a couple out of the Viroqua area, but just kind of talked through, and it was with juniors, 17-year-olds getting ready to go to college, or looking for college options and what's our next step in life. And so it was fun. Everybody talked about where they were at when they were 17 and what their lifelong plans were, and is anybody doing exactly what they thought they'd be doing? And everybody's like, absolutely not. It's been a roller coaster, good, bad, ugly, whatever. And so anyways, I thought I'd bring that up because it was really fun, and I hope they do that every year, and I'd love to be part of it. It actually probably helped me more than them, maybe, because it was just got you talking about it, and yeah. So it was fun. Got potentially 2 or 3 new members coming on board. It's early, but just it's exciting to see some interest and finally getting some applications and at least some inquiries. So hopefully they continue to come around and can add them to the team. Call volume has calmed down a little bit and leveled out. First part of the year, you've heard me talk that it was pretty crazy. Now that I've said that, we'll probably get in trouble, and it'll crank back up, but it has kind of come back to the more normal part of it. Rain and things have greened up. That was some of it, but kind of talk about the positives too, right? So talked about the walkthrough. Let's see, starting to think about an open house for the new station. Obviously, that's a little complicated on when, but ideas of what we'd do. If you've got any thoughts or any suggestions or what you'd like to see, and who you'd like to see us invite, obviously it'll be the norms, right? The grant people and the normal community members, and anybody will be invited. But we're talking about maybe offering up some food and through the firefighters and different things like that. So just be aware we are thinking about that, working on it, and we were going to try and have it in October. Typically have an open house anyways annually for Fire Prevention Week. So we thought about trying to do it somewhere in there, but it's all going to depend on when we get in and how the move goes, and timing and everything. So just kind of a heads up, I guess, and food for thought. And again, if you have any input for me, that'd be great. I'm going to try and write a DNR grant that's due on July 1st. Comes around once a year. It's got to be wildland fire specific equipment. You can get up to a $20,000 grant. It's a 50-50 grant, so they technically give you 10, and then you got to cover 10. What I've done in years past is Tried to use that to help with, the budget, let's say. So a couple years ago, I was able to buy an AED, some portable radios, some pagers, a few other tangibles, which helped supplement some of the cuts or, different things that we've had to do throughout the years and different reasons. So nothing specific, but so just to be aware, I always want to talk about grants and keep the city or keep you guys informed on what we're trying to work at. The 50% piece would be budgetary money, and it's what we've done in the past or whatever. So I'm not asking for extra money, just making sure that we might be getting a grant, and it does involve the city and the towns. So what we did, I talked about this last time, I think. So we did receive the EMS funds already. So the money, heard me talk about that, $34,000. I was holding off spending it just because there's some uncertainty and spend before yet, but we received the money. So the money is in the city's account. So I'll start working on getting that money spent. Feel more comfortable that the money's in our hands versus trying to get reimbursed. So
Did that have to be designated to
that's
specific?
specific to EMS. Yep. So it's got to be medically related. So
Sure.
I'm going to probably, some of the things I'm looking at is some ballistic.
I thought you
items.
talked about
That's
maybe
an
some
authorized
veteran.
item. Yep. Maybe some portables, AED or two. But again, specific to the EMS world. And then I think the last thing I had was, let's see, just we're starting to work on some problem properties again. That's my most favorite part of my job. But we do have some locations that have some serious problems again. Again for some, and I'll leave it at that. I do have some locations that I'm still trying to work through some fire code violations, and it's like watching paint dry. So just be aware of it. But it's probably gonna end up getting a little ugly with a few of them. But it's when you make your own bed, I guess that you know what happens. So other than that, unless you have anything specific questions for me, I guess that's my update.
Appreciate that.
So thank you.
Chief with the police.
Actually don't have much. Most of them are stuff I've already talked about, but just updating you. Bike rodeo went great. For our first year, we had about 50 kids. A lot of them got new bikes, pumps. I think we got 150 helmets donated, and we gave out almost 50 helmets to even brothers and sisters and stuff that had stuff at home. So that was absolutely awesome. So we kind of pushed our helmet initiative that I did when I got here, is where we give out free ice cream cones for anybody that wears their helmet. So kids were pretty excited about that, where they're again waving at us and damn near falling off their bike, But yeah, that was very good. So just want to put a plug in there. That will be an annual thing. Usually probably the first Saturday in May is what we're going to go for right before school gets out. So I think that that will only get bigger. K9 golf outing actually was, I can't say that it didn't go well. It was successful. It was cold last weekend, so we did have a few golfers that didn't show up, which is financially, but for the most part, we had a lot of good donations. A lot of people just walked in and helped us, so K9 golf outing went extremely well. The other thing I talked about probably almost a month ago was the audit. So the IT company and Annette and myself worked extremely hard. That audit is unbearable, but we got through it. We just got back, actually, I think Annette told me today, at least I was informed today, that we got the audit back out of the 800 some questions. Only 3 questions we have to fix now. So we fixed a lot of them on the way there and wrote some policies to fix a few things and some signage, but we only have 3 left, which is amazing. IT company was amazing. Like they do it for a lot of other agencies too, and we were the first one. We're the guinea pig for them as well, for Mike and Chris. So I'll give another shout out to the IT company. They were amazing during this audit, which is a big deal for the city of Viroqua too. So that audit is through the state. Just one grant we just got. It's going to be unique, but we got Narcan and fentanyl strips for the public, not for the PD. But it's unique. We can't give it to the health department, the hospital, and we can't have like a workstation at a city government building. So we have to get some sort of initiative out there where we can keep these Narcan and fentanyl strips available to the public, but we can't, they have to feel safe to get it, on their own type of thing. So we got to find a location right now, but we do have Narcan and fentanyl strips awarded to us. So if you have any ideas, that'd be a great one.
Is that, say if you're a business owner in town and you want to
Yeah.
have them at your business, you can
Yeah.
come into the police station and procure those? Is
Yeah,
that
they
correct?
can, we can give them to the business and they can do it on their own.
Yeah,
We just can't have like you see some of them right now, they don't want those candy machines or those pop machines with where it's free, you just push a button and a Narcan comes out. That's not what this grant's for, so we couldn't have anything at City Hall.
sure.
But the only one we can kind of go with is the college and the library, the hallway part of it, but
Okay.
I don't know if we want to do that yet, so. So we're gonna have future conversations with it, but they did just give it to us, so just maybe rack your brain, but yes, business owners are very easy. Last one is just construction, working on signage. Trying to teach and educate that there's new lights at South Street is, impossible. And then, just all the one-way streets too. So some of the, do not enter signs were even out on Terhune yet. So there's a few of them. It's just educational, trying to be visible out there, but it will come. So I hear your frustrations. They'll get better. Unless
Appreciate
there's
it.
questions, that's all I got.
No, thank you.
Rick, on that education piece, I know Sarah and Public Works had mentioned like, hey, we got it up now. It's like time to reinforce and educate. Is there anything in particular we can do at this time that you would suggest to sort of get it going? Like any particular methods that you've seen work better than other as far as public communication that we should consider? I'm just curious.
I don't think so much public education. Mine is just signage. So like on Terhune, by the farmer's market, they're already expecting a turn there, so they see the signs too late. So we have to have perpendicular signs so people know ahead of time that they can't turn on Terhune. That's on both sides of the street. We don't have a stop sign on Terhune on one side, and there's still no do not enter. So it's just signage where you can't just, if you need me, like Court Street, it's, you almost have to turn and then you see the sign. You have to almost have it on Rock Street so you know not to turn right. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So kind of like we do on Main Street on Jefferson. So on Main Street Jefferson, there's signs that you see while you're driving north and south instead of just when you would look. So we got to do that on Terhune and Court Street as well. And then with the South Street, what we noticed is when the road barrels are out, nobody saw the stoplights really because there's just so much going on. So they're looking to, how am I going to move this lane up? And oh my gosh, there's a street light above me. It has gotten better since the road barrels have been moved. So, but it's education. I mean, people have been driving it for years.
We having accidents down because of that?
It's good to hear.
Yeah, right.
I appreciate those updates and that effort as we come into the summer months. We've reached second period for public comment. And still nobody here. Anybody online would be willing or interested in making a public comment? Well, with none, we would look for a motion for adjournment.
This is Crystal. I'll move we adjourn.
Steve, I'll second.
All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned.